Well, before we go any farther, Ed, perhaps you ought to tell us exactly what the procedure of circumcision is.
You know, I don't know. Shock you? I hope it does.
It does.
Do you know that doctors don't know what circumcision is or how it should be defined? And if you think I'm kidding you, I'm not. Circumcision is the surgical removal of part of the foreskin, the sleeve of skin that covers the glands. The word glands, by the way, comes from the word acorn. You want to know what the glands look like? Go out to the park or the woods and find an oak tree and you see an acorn. That's what a gland looks like. They cut off that part of the penis. The $64 billion question is, how much of the foreskin should be cut off? 1%? 99%? There is no consensus among American physicians as to how much foreskin should be cut off.
You know, we have some pictures. Before we show the pictures, though, we'll say that these are drawings, but they're rather graphic of before and after of a circumcision. Ed, why don't you explain what we are looking at here just after you?
I don't know what you're going to show.
Well, unfortunately, that monitor isn't on.
I think I see it up there. The drawings you're going to see are illustrations of what the penis looks like before it's circumcised and after it's circumcised. It may shock you to know that most people don't know. Thank you. Most people don't know what a circumcised penis and an uncircumcised penis looks like.
Okay, this is uncircumcised.
That's an uncircumcised penis. You can see the swelling of the glands underneath that shows through, and that's covered by a foreskin.
All right.
Now, this is a circumcised penis, and these are great drawings because I made them. The uncircumcised penis, the circumcised penis, you will see the skin covering the shaft of the penis is sort of bunched up below the glands. And this is what allows for erection in the circumcised penis. Okay?
All right. Erica, you had a question.
Yes, I was wondering when it started, like where it started from and why.
I don't hear.
I was wondering where circumcision originated from.
That's a very easy question. I don't know. Now, there are a lot of people...
For a foremost authority on circumcision, Ed, you don't know a lot of stuff here.
I am the most ignorant person you're going to find. You will look in the books and you'll see it all over saying that circumcision originated with the Jews. Well, it didn't originate with the Jews. The Encyclopedia Judaica of 1971 makes the point very clearly that circumcision was practiced for centuries by the Egyptians before it was practiced by the Jews. Now, about 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said to you that is exactly what the origin is. When I was in Australia, the Australian Aborigines claimed to have practiced circumcision for 75,000 years. So I will say to you, I don't know. You know? Great, I'll listen to you. How it began, we don't know for sure. But in the early part of the 20th century and the last decades of the 19th century, physicians were looking for cures. The germ theory of disease didn't come about until about 1895. We didn't know what caused diseases. Somebody came along with an idea, everybody listened to him. The most prolific writer on circumcision health benefits was a doctor named Peter Charles Remendino. And he said, this procedure will prevent or cure about 100 ailments. Asthma, epilepsy, gout, rectal prolapse, feeble-mindedness, insanity. You name the disease, it was prevented or cured by circumcision. Now, I ignore this book. It's of no importance to me. Why? It was written in 1891. What is important is that this book was reprinted word for word in 1974. And in 1974, and even now, you will find this book used as medical reference in American medical journals. This, to me, is a disgrace.
But is it used as reference for fact, or that this is how we approached medicine back in the late 1800s?
It is used as fact. In 1974, one physician writing in an American medical journal, I'm trying to avoid giving you all the details that you can't absorb, this man wrote that the Remendino book is pertinent and carefully thought out. Now, this is ridiculous. The thing to bear...
I'm going to have to interrupt you only a moment, because we have to take a commercial break. Circumcision did not stop commercial breaks. We'll be back in just a moment. Barbara, you had a question.
You said that it's extremely painful, and I was wondering if anesthesia is ever used at all.
The answer is yes. What I'm going to tell you, you may not believe, but we have been lied to, L-I-E-D, lied to by the medical profession for 100 years about circumcision. You will read in medical textbooks that circumcision is absolutely not painful. It's impossible for it not to be painful. And physicians have fought against the use of anesthesia. It is not used widely in the United States because anesthesia adds to the risk. It is used, I got the information just about 2 weeks ago, one province in Canada reports that 10% of the children are circumcised using anesthesia. It is generally not used, and these are lies about circumcision.
What are the risks of using anesthetic?
Risk of anesthetic, first of all, you can not get it into the right place, and you can puncture a nerve and cause permanent damage. This is known. You have a risk of infection. Anytime you penetrate the skin, I don't care for what purpose, there's an additional danger of infection. I am saying that 75%, about 75% of the world's population do not practice circumcision. They do not routinely circumcise their
For those
males.
who picked it up other than Jewish people, why did we pick it up then?
Let me complete that thought for you because it's a very important one.
You keep me straight now, Ed.
I sure will. I sure will. I think you know that by now. Who are the countries that do not practice circumcision? All of the countries of continental Europe, from the Netherlands down to Greece and up through Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union, China, and Japan, among many others. Not only do they not practice circumcision, they never have in the past, and nobody is urging them to do it. Now, if you know your arithmetic, you know that 75% of the world's population do not practice circumcision. Who are those who do? It's about 25%. All circumcisions, all, with one exception, we'll come to that, are religious rituals or puberty rites as practiced by Muslims, Jews, many black Africans, and black Australians. Isolated pockets here and there in different parts of the world. But every circumcision is a religious ritual or puberty rite with one exception, and that is the practice in the English-speaking countries. This is where it was done, only in the English-speaking countries. We mentioned before all of the diseases that were said to be prevented or cured by circumcision. One of the most important things I can tell you, let us say that some of these reasons are correct. All of them are correct. I'll let you say that to me. In the 100 years that so-called health circumcision has been practiced, not one additional country was persuaded by the evidence to institute the practice. Not one. On the contrary, almost every country where they did institute it pulled back and said no. For example, in the 1950s, some 30 years ago, in each of the English-speaking countries, the circumcision rate was 80, 85, 90%. Today, in Great Britain, the circumcision rate is less than 1/10%. I know because I was there in August and I met with the people. I wanted to get information from them. And they insisted that I write an article for them, for their medical journals.
Well, I don't understand, Ed, because 14 years ago, our American Academy of Pediatrics said it is unnecessary surgery. Why wasn't that publicized? Why wasn't that made known to the people who were circumcising their baby boys or thinking about doing it, aside from religious reasons?
That's a very interesting question because, as you pointed out, in 1971 and again in 1975, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued such a statement. They said there are no valid medical indications for circumcision in the newborn period. Now, you would think that the rate would have dropped. No, not at all. In 1978...
The question is why?
I'm going to get to that. That's the billion-dollar question because it's far more serious than that. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists endorsed the position of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, when the Academy of Pediatrics issued their statements, they published it in their journal, Pediatrics. When the obstetrician gynecologist said that they supported the Academy of Pediatrics, they never published that statement. To this day, they have never published it. Now, the question of why, I think, and I will say this publicly, the motto of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists is, be sincere whether you mean it or not.
Jerry, you had a question.
Yes, I was wondering how often something like mistakes occur, disfigurement, scarring, badly, or does this happen?
Let me address that. I know you're going to be very angry with me because all I'm telling you this morning is that I don't know. There has never been a nationwide study in the United States of any aspect of circumcision. Never been a study. So you say to me, how many children were injured? How many children had hemorrhage? How many children had infection? How many children lost their penises? How many children died? I don't know. You don't know, and your physicians don't know. Nobody has bothered to collect the evidence. Now, let me just take off on one question before we get off somewhere else. There are incredible myths about circumcision. I have collected hundreds of them. I am told that circumcision will make the penis longer. I'm told that circumcision will make the penis shorter, thicker, thinner, better sex, poorer sex, you name it. I've heard it. They are all myths. They are untrue. And you want to know the psychological trauma? It has never been studied. We cut off 1.25 million foreskins in the United States each year. And we don't know why.
How about cleanliness?
I thought you'd never ask. See, we are taught, this is one of the myths. See, one of the myths, it's not true, it's a lie. These are one of the lies we're told about circumcision. It's going to prevent cancer, it's going to prevent venereal disease, it's going to make cleanliness easier. Not true. In 1955, a Columbia University obstetrician made the point, and correctly so, that smegma, which is the material produced out of the foreskin, is produced in all mammals, the horse in copious quantities. Can you imagine what would happen if somebody called for the routine circumcision of baby horses? The humane societies would scream cruelty to animals, and they wouldn't permit it. And yet, in the United States, we find it absolutely acceptable for boys.
So yes, just good personal hygiene would solve that problem.
Absolutely. And if we have time to discuss hygiene, what I'd like to discuss is feminine hygiene. Females produce smegma. And if you are looking for details of problems, if you look for the rate of cancer of the external genitalia, you will find it is 200, 300, and 400% higher in females than in males. And anybody who would publicly proclaim that we ought to circumcise females, he'd wind up in a mental hospital.
Yeah, Liz, you had a comment to make.
Yes, I was just concerned about the fact my grandson was circumcised about 10 months ago when he was born. And they really botched him up, and they had to send him back 3 times because he kept bleeding and bleeding, and my daughter was very distraught about the whole thing, and it was, you know, not very sightly afterwards because now there's a big lump all around the penis, so aren't the kids still going to laugh at him?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. I wonder if this might be the time to tell you one of the most horrible stories about circumcision. I'm sure it hit the San Francisco papers. It occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, in August of this past year. 2 boys were circumcised using electrocautery, which they had no right to use, but they did. They were so severely burned that the penis of one of the boys was cut off immediately. The other boy has absolutely no sensation and no use of his penis, and very likely will be cut off again. Not again, but they also. The most shocking thing about that's bad enough, it's horrible enough. In the Atlanta Constitution, September 21st, 1985, there was an article in which this procedure was described and the tragedy discussed, and they quoted from the director of urology of the Medical School of Georgia. I'll give you his name because it was in the Atlanta Constitution. His name was Roy Witherington. He said that these 2 boys can lead a, quote, near normal life. Now that to me is, I don't know how to describe it. It's an absolute horror, but this is the attitude toward circumcision in the United States.